a little bit about what I do at Mattel and some of the things that Mattel has done as a case study. I definitely, you set up a very high bar here, so this is we'll try to be fun, we'll try to be exciting about this, and I wanted to start with something a bit tongue-in-cheek, but a bit realistic too, for how Mattel and how toy companies really are at the cutting edge of technology and have been and will continue to be. You don't normally think of a toy company being something that is going to be doing something completely new, that is going to push boundaries, but the reality is that we do and we have been for years. So I've got about 75 years of history to try to condense into 30 minutes. So this is just going to be rapid fire, a little bit of teasing all of us who think that, wow, we're in this really new era, we're doing these new things. Well, we're not. I just wanted to quickly go through a history of innovation, all right? Ways that Mattel toys, and you could say this about anyone else in the toy industry, but Mattel toys that really blaze the trail to today's metaverse. This is also a test to see how old you are. So if you know what this is, if you know that this is a Chatty Cathy doll, some of you do, I see some nods out there, and some of you have heard the phrase. Why this is so I think important, why people know about Chatty Cathy is because Chatty Cathy was the first doll to actually have digitized speech. Okay, this is the first consumer product that did this at scale. Hundreds of thousands of these were sold, and it's just one example of what Mattel has done. So when we think about the metaverse and virtual reality, we did that in 1939. Okay, Viewmaster, if you think about it, this is a very early foray into virtual reality. No cords, no batteries. You can see a whole lot of different things. Everything's always in focus. No motion sickness. That's a big one for me. We did that, okay? Digital gaming. I often talk about myself in half joking and half serious terms that I am a video game and monster truck lawyer. I am. That's what I do. But Mattel, so here's a company that had a first place finish, okay, see the pun there, for handheld digital gaming, the first fully digital handheld mass-marketed, mass-produced and sold digital game. So way before Game Boy, way before any of that, you had Auto Race. That was 1976. Downloadable content. Not many of you, or maybe some of you have played with the Mattel Intellivision. Okay, the brand is still around there. It's been sold and auctioned off and this and that as time went on. In 1981, or shortly thereafter, one of the things that Intellivision offered is you could actually download games over the phone. It was the first product to be able to do this, and really led the way in 1981 for that. A lot of these things I think are a little too early for their time, and that's one of the curses of the toy industry. Yes, we can get it out at a cheap price point. Yes, we can get it out into the hands of children and adults, but sometimes we just don't know what to do with it. One of my favorites, and I just had to steal this image shamelessly from the internet, the Power Glove, which this is actually what I look like on the weekends. Motion tracking controllers. Hey, we did that in 1989. This was over 31 years now, 32 years now. The Nintendo Power Glove was, Mattel design, something that we worked with Mattel on. So, a lot of these technologies that we see, again, as being new and part of the metaverse, well, here they are. AI babysitting. Okay, 2017 was too soon for this one. There was a product called Aristotle that Mattel was going to roll out, and then, after getting some feedback about it on the privacy side of things, the idea was it was an AI babysitter, like an Alexa for your kids. And this would have been 5 years ago. The privacy concerns were too much, ended up killing the product. Not all of these can be successful. Getting into modern day, one of the more fun things, and one of the more, one of the toys that is really starting to blur the line between physical and digital is Hot Wheels ID. And this is cars that you can purchase at retail, that you can scan. We use RFID technology, that you can use your phone, you can use your laptop, you can use your tablet, and then there's a virtual representation of the car as well that you can race digitally. You can do all sorts of things. You can see stats, all the things that you wanted to do playing with Hot Wheels when you were a kid or you did in your imagination. You can do it online. So, okay, that was a brief history of some of the forward-thinking things that Mattel has done, and I say that for a couple of reasons. One is to illustrate when it comes to DNA, when it comes to creativity, it's something that has been built into our corporate ethos. It's part of our culture. So when, that's one way to set us up, and the way that we were set up for success moving into Web3, moving into blockchain, moving into digital collectibles. But the question is, well, okay, what do we do with this? What's kind of fun with this? How do we play with these technologies and most importantly, let adults and children play with these technologies? And this is really where the case study begins. So had some reflection, looked back on the past 2 years when our Future Lab team, okay, that's our in-house skunkworks team that's been working on connected play products and our blockchain products and our digital collectibles. And I looked back and I said, well, okay, what are the things that worked to make this successful? And since we're in New York, it is required by statute that I quote Yogi Berra, and that is, if you don't know where you're going, you'll end up somewhere else. So you end up someplace else. The same thing applies for corporate strategy when it comes to implementing blockchain, Web3, et cetera. So from our perspective, among other things, what Future Lab is trying to do in Web3 is to build community. Now, you heard it said in the last panel, and others have said it, Mattel has a number of brands that are purely and simply and truly iconic. Barbie, Hot Wheels, Fisher-Price, American Girl, Magic 8 Ball, Uno. The list goes on and on and on. All things that not only have you played with in this room, but children have played with around the world for decades. There is a built-in community, a fan base that comes with that. So all of you that played with Hot Wheels as a kid, there's a large number of people that never stopped, and all of a sudden they wanted to collect for whatever various reasons they have. We're happy for it, but it's become a thing for them. Barbies, same thing, you name it. People want to do this. So Web3, and in particular digital collectibles, are a way for us not necessarily to sell new product or to create new experiences, but to build community. Now, maybe what that means, and you can see an image of this here, is maybe it means exclusive products. Maybe that means members-only discussions where you have to show that you own a digital collectible to be part of the conversation. Maybe it's VIP events. There's a number of conferences that happen worldwide for collectors. Maybe it's something like that. Or maybe it's just the ability to cut in line or to be a VIP, so to speak, when it comes to buying limited edition products with Mattel. These are just some of the things that we're thinking about. We led the way with Hot Wheels. We thought that this is sort of the perfect mixture of both adults that are interested, highly motivated, really enjoy collecting, and the technology kind of fit that demographic very well. So we led the way with Hot Wheels, and here is the part where we started using NFTs. I think language and vocabulary is incredibly important in this space. And part of the work that I do through the Wilson Center is trying to settle on language that really makes sense and differentiates what we do with digital collectibles with maybe more financial products that could be considered digital assets. And as an aside, this is sort of one of the issues that is happening from a regulatory perspective, but also from a consumer communication perspective, is that if we called these things digital assets, and sometimes people have, the issue with that is that digital collectibles get lumped in with digital assets, and they're completely different things. Digital collectibles, or just regular collectibles, like baseball cards, are not securities. Okay, they're collectibles. When we use that terminology to say digital assets, things can get a little problematic because there are things that could potentially be securities in the digital asset space. Now, to be perfectly clear, and maybe I should have said this before, these are my opinions and not the opinions of Mattel, my employer. But but I want to be clear to all of you and be fully upfront that when it comes to the blockchain and when it comes to crypto, I am an optimist. I am also a blockchain skeptic. Okay, I think there are a lot of things that companies are doing, a lot of things that startups are doing that are solutions in search of a problem. Or there's a lot of things that people are doing, whether it's companies, startups, if they're trying to do it for marketing buzz or otherwise, it would be just as easy, if not easier, with a better user experience to do it in a private database that's accessible via APIs. So when it comes to these things, that's just my thought around it, just so you know. But I'm also an optimist. I think there's a lot of really interesting things that we can do collectible-wide, community-wide. There's a layer on top of it that occurs, and these are all things that we are thinking about at Mattel. When you have wallets, when you have people that are collecting, what can we do in addition to that? Now that we can see who owns it, what can we do in addition to that? And some of those things include actual physical product redemption as well. And this has been touched on, especially in the ticketing case, where, hey, if you have an NFT, you can redeem this at some point in time. Or if it's more of a baseball card, digital baseball card approach, like what we've done with our Hot Wheels NFT garage, it's something that you can, if you get that rare baseball card, if you get that rare NFT, at a certain time you can redeem that and get a very rare collector's physical Hot Wheels diecast. And to a collector, that's huge. That access is something that you really can't put a price tag on. All right, these are slides now where it's going to be me telling more story and less visuals. So I wanted to go through a little bit about how Mattel was first to the finish line when it came to digital collectibles. And it's a long story, it's a long setup, and although I'm speaking more at a C-suite level and explaining how to set up the right situation and the right conditions for something like this to grow, I think there's a lot of tactical advice that I hope that you will get out of this. And I've tried to pair things up into point and counterpoint, the different things that you need to have in order to be successful and the things that worked at Mattel. So about 3 years ago, I started to get involved with our digital gaming team. And this is where the vision came into play. So it wasn't a C-suite directive at the start. It was from a tactical business development level where we were starting to look at new and emerging technologies. And that's something our teams do very well. One thing that's kind of unique about the toy industry is, unlike many other industries out there, we have to come up with new products every single year. Some of those products stick, they become classics, and we sell them year over year over year, maybe 10 years, but those are the rarity. The reality is we have to come up with a whole new product line every single year in perpetuity. So Mattel and other toy companies are set up very well to have that forward-looking vision, to see where the markets are going, to see what people are interested in, and to see what people want to literally play around with. So part of that was the vision, starting to think about it, starting to look at what other companies are doing, starting to see what other players outside of the consumer product space are doing with digital collectibles, are doing with the blockchain, and just being aware. And there was a couple times where I would be called on as an attorney just to give some general advice. And this is trailblazing stuff for Mattel, just to say, hey, we're thinking about doing this. What do we need to worry about? Very high-level thinking, very high-level issue spotting, but really important for the team to guide them with where they should be looking and where they shouldn't be looking. Okay? So there was a bit of that anticipation. The vision came later, and that was more of a C-suite directive that met that anticipation in the middle, and I think it was part of the reason why we were able to move so quickly on it. So not only had the digital gaming team in this case, which has become the Future Lab, or part of the Future Lab team, not only were they thinking about this ahead of time so that when the C-suite started asking, what are we doing in this space, how can we be in this space, they were ready, they anticipated it. But then there was also a vision from the C-suite, not just what's going on in this space, is there room for us, it was an imperative. It was, we want to be in this space, figure out how to make this work. So that type of vision at the C-suite level is really important to enabling the teams to move forward. And that's a little bit what I have on this slide about direction and then permission for the mission. So what I mean by that, okay? The C-suite sets the direction. And there's a number of different ways this can be done. Some more effective than others. And I think what was effective here, the direction was, we want to be in digital collectibles. We want to do something in this NFT space. This is when it was hot. This is when it was really starting to pick up. This is when Christie's was auctioning off multi-million-dollar NFTs. The market was crazy. It was a bubble, certainly. But this is when things were getting really excited, and we were already planning for it. We had already anticipated for it. We already had the vision. And now it was direction. And the direction wasn't, I want you to make $10 million this next year on this. No, that wasn't the type of the direction that the C-suite brought down to the business teams. It was simply, I want to be in this space. We want to be in this space. We want to try this out. We don't care if you make money. We don't want you to waste money either, but we don't care. Get in this space, see what happens. We want to be first. We want to beat our competitors here. And I think that was the right direction to go in. The flip side to that, talking about direction, is making sure the business had permission to try things. So the first time that we did an NFT drop, okay, guess what? We had no idea what we were doing. Okay, we couldn't build that technology up in-house. We didn't have the team. We didn't have the expertise. So we had to work with outside partners to make it happen. What was important is that we had permission, both from a legal perspective, from a risk-taking perspective, but also from a business perspective to try to make this happen. Okay, and that permission for the mission was incredibly important because it enabled a level of risk that typically a publicly traded toy company that's directed towards children was able to take. And that comes from the C-suite. That authorization, that permission comes from the C-suite. And it was important for this case because there were many instances where as a team, and boy, was this a team, both from finance, from legal, from regulatory, from product, from marketing, all of these people working together to figure out what we can and can't or should and shouldn't do. Being able to have that risk tolerance is really important, okay? And being able to pivot is really important too because there are roadblocks, and there will be roadblocks. Looking into the finance side, Treasury, guess what? Most publicly traded companies are going to be very wary about holding on to crypto on the books. Okay, so we got to find a workaround for that. We got to find a way to convert crypto that we receive from a primary transaction or a secondary transaction into US dollars or whatever fiat currency that we want to use because guess what? That's what we want to have on the books. The alternative is, well, we can figure that out, but it's going to take 3 years. We don't have time for that. So we have to find workarounds. We have to be nimble. That's why the permission is incredibly important. So when it came down to execution, and there's been a number of drops since and a number of different styles and things that we've learned along the way. The first that we were doing, these were auctions. So that was really interesting, and there was some challenges with that. So not only did we have to figure out all these rules for an auction, we had to figure out all of these KYC, AML issues because we weren't sure what was going to happen. Now, we weren't expecting these Hot Wheels NFTs, their first drop, these great little animated GIFs. We weren't expecting them to go for millions of dollars. Well, we didn't know. We didn't know what was going to happen. So we had to be prepared for that, and that was challenging. We had people on standby. We had to create multiple paths. Like, what happens if this goes? What happens if there's a challenge to the auction results, and how does this all work? So we had to kind of think about all these externalities and all these different ways that things could go and meet them head on. So that was one of the challenges of it, but we were able to execute because we had all of those alternatives planned out. As time went on, we've tried interesting, new, and different things, and I'll talk a bit about those, but we've tried things like integrating our IP into other people's NFT drops. So there was a couple instances where we licensed out Mattel IP for people that were doing, one was movie memorabilia. If you remember from Back to the Future 2, there was Marty McFly's hoverboard That was a Mattel product, and I think that was probably supposed to come out this year, but we're still working on it. But there was an example where we licensed out, and that takes a lot of the risk away, but it also takes a lot of the benefits away as well. We've done partnerships where we have auctioned off NFTs with Balmain, a very famous French fashion house, which is a really interesting collaboration. Again, Balmain was trying to be edgy and cutting edge, and they really hit the Barbie core trend before it was cool, so good for them. And that was really interesting too, because now we had different issues that we had to think about and different executions that we had to think about. There was a physical component to that as well. So the winners of those auctions would also receive a Balmain couture Barbie doll that was dressed in Balmain at a miniature scale. And there were sort of issues that we had to think about with that. Like, okay, it's kind of hard to tell who wins an auction. I mean, we know which wallet wins an auction, but how do we verify they are who they say they are? How can we figure out where to ship this to? Privacy issues come into play because now we're collecting information from people that maybe don't want their privacy or their name or their address or things revealed. So there's a lot of issues that we had to face there, but we were able to execute on that. We moved towards what I'll call, lovingly, by the way, the idea of a digital baseball card. So the Hot Wheels NFT Garage is exactly that. It mimics what baseball cards are physically. So you buy, this wasn't an auction anymore, you buy a pack of NFTs, you don't know what's inside them, you open it up. We make sure that the distributions are even, so it's not a lottery, but just like a baseball card, you might get that one rare card in every pack, okay? And first of all, these things sell out instantly. I mean, if things are going smoothly within the hour, we'll sell out 10,000 NFT or 10,000 card packs, and there's a significant amount of trading that happens afterwards. And in order to give the trading a little bit of juice, some of those very rare cards have a physical component to it. So after a certain amount of time, 60 or 90 days after both the purchase, we gave people time to trade, and then whoever owned those NFTs, the digital collectibles at that time for those super rare cards, we would send them a token, and they would be able to redeem that token for an actual physical product. So that was a huge surprise and delight for fans and collectors, and something that worked really, really well. I wanted to talk a little bit about vision and mission and what that actually looks like for Mattel. So I am conflating the two, so just to be perfectly clear, we have a Future Lab team and we have a digital gaming team, but they are siblings, okay? They work together very often and there's a lot of overlap. For our Future Lab team, we've really tried to codify what our mission is, and we try to go big, and we're trying to think, again, this is 5, 10, 15 years into the future, and working backwards. To how do we get to where we want to be in 6 years, but then work backwards from that. So our mission is, and you can read this, but it is to create a scalable, monetizable Web3 product platform. Okay, it's all about new experiences for our customers, but for our brands, our products, our creators, the people that are still creative with our toys, and fans. Okay, we want to figure out how we can usher in that new space for them. So how is that done? Practically speaking, you need a team. And that team needs to focus on certain things. It can't focus on everything because there's so much going on in the space. We focus purely on pioneering the future of play. Okay, it's about enablement, and it's about accelerating innovation beyond what we do conventionally. So it's so easy to look back and worry about cannibalizing current product lines and maybe self-competition, whatever it may be. But this is all about taking what's being done conventionally and being unconventional with it. And maybe they succeed. Maybe they line up on my list of things that were a little bit too early for public view, but we're first in the world. But that's okay. That's what we're trying to do in this space. It's also really important from a team and a corporate perspective to understand why. And for us, we understand that our consumers, their behaviors are evolving. And I'm talking both about adults and about children. Okay, children spend about 80% of their time on YouTube, on Roblox, on the one I don't understand the most, on watching other children play with toys. That's a big thing. And we're trying to meet that behavior. Only 10, 20% maybe is spent on actual physical product play. Well, we think that's still important, but we want to meet our consumers where they are. So we're trying to take advantage of really unconventional opportunities that, look, our core strength, supply chain, distribution, manufacturing, are really not focused on. So a couple things. I've got a few minutes left. I want to give you a little sneak peek. I literally right before this had to check to see what we've announced and what we haven't. This is what we've announced so far. There is much, much, much more to come. Okay, I wish I could talk about it soon. Okay, Hot Wheels NFT Garage. This has been wildly successful. We are continuing this. We are doing new drops all the time. New cars. You will notice something kind of interesting about the cars here. That's right, these are real cars. So now there's a new third-party branding component that comes into play. It used to be like a Bone Shaker or sort of the crazy Hot Wheels cars that Mattel owned. Now we're really making sure that we work with third parties because people, collectors, are really interested in having authentic products or products that are cross-licensed. So that is a lot of fun and is leading to some sleepless nights for me to work with these other companies who are, guess what, not as far ahead as Mattel when it comes to Web3. We just announced on International Day of the Girl our second collaboration with Boss Beauties, which we are very excited about. This is something that we're doing in NFT, PFP, profile picture collection. We are trying to be purpose-driven with our brands. Very important for us. Barbie is not just a doll. Barbie is a state of mind. It celebrates women. It celebrates the fact that girls can be anything. So the Barbie and Boss Beauties was a very natural fit, celebrating Barbie's over 250 careers this year for International Day of the Girl. And then there's also a component of this that we're working into that has a donation component that goes to our Dream Gap project. All great things that we can do in Web3 and with the blockchain that we weren't able to do before. We're also getting into some NFT-enabled gaming. So we just announced maybe a month ago a collaboration with Cryptoys. We are licensing Masters of the Universe, one of our iconic properties, and we'll start to see how this space works, which is really a marriage between that Future Lab and digital gaming. Tokens, we just announced, I think literally a couple days ago, so I don't have a lot of information on this slide yet. This one is maybe the most interesting collaboration that we're doing. Tokens, which is founded actually by some former Mattel people, is bringing blockchain, NFT, Web3 to kids. Okay, so now we're entering into a whole different world of privacy, but it is meant to be a very educational experience for children, where children learn, hey, this is what the NFTs are, this is what the metaverse is, you can buy, trade, you can do all sorts of things. So it'll be, for all of us, that have children that want them to get interested in the future, Tokens is going to be the platform to do that, and Mattel, Fisher-Price is going to be involved, so we're really excited about that. I'm going to wrap it up there. I don't know if we had any questions or comments, but I'm happy to take them with whatever time we have.
We had a couple of questions come in. We have time if you can answer really quickly.
Yeah.
This one is asking, when you first pitched the digital collectibles to the C-suite, what was their initial first objections?
Great question. First objections, it came down to a couple of things. One was, how are we going to create digital artwork that was enticing enough and interesting enough for collectors to want? The other objection that we have, because we are an IP-driven, high-performing toy company, was how are we going to protect our IP in the Web3 space? And that is probably an hour-long conversation that I will talk your ear off about. Very quickly, we license. Okay, the owners of the NFTs aren't the owners of the artwork that go along with it. That's how we do it. That's how we protect the brand. They get some rights, but those were some of the objections that came from the C-suite and some of the things that they were very concerned about.
Great info. Thank you so much. Give them a round of applause. Thank you, Jordan.